Hello, everybody. I hope you are still well wherever you are and that you're feeling good. Uh, this is me, Georgia Byng. I'm the author of the Molly Moon books, and the book that I'm reading from for you is Molly Moon's incredible book of hypnotism. So here it is, and today I've got this picture for you to look at, which I bought in a junk shop. I don't know who it's by, but it's really nice. I think it's trying to be, the painter tried to paint like Salvador Dali, who is a famous Spanish painter. Um, and so that's for you to look at. I'm going to take my book and put it over here with these 2 or 3 noggins covering them up. There's the book, and I'm going to read it to you from where we got to, which is chapter 2. We got to chapter 2, so here we go. Sometimes when bad luck comes your way, you think it will never end. Molly Moon often felt this way about her luck, which wasn't surprising since she was so often in trouble. If only she'd known that her luck was about to change, she might have enjoyed the following day, for by the end of it, Molly would feel that all sorts of wonderful things were going to happen to her. But that morning, from the moment she opened her eyes after a sound sleep on her lumpy orphanage mattress, Molly's day started to go wrong. This is how it happened. She was woken with a shock by a bell ringing loudly in her ear. Big-boned Hazel, Miss Addison's pet, liked to wake Molly up as violently as possible. Hazel had her shoulder-length black hair neatly scraped back under a hairband and had already squeezed her athletic body into her tight-fitting blue school uniform. It's the cross-country races at school today, Drono, Bogey Eyes, and that's also the 50-word spelling test, she announced. She walked away, swinging her bell happily, delighted to have ruined Molly's morning. Molly quickly dressed and went into the bedroom that Rocky shared with Gordon. Gordon threw a soggy paper cup at her to welcome her in. Rocky was singing to himself, oblivious of everything around him. "Rock," said Molly, "did you remember the spelling test today?" They tried to catch up over breakfast, only to have their homework books confiscated by Miss Addison. Then Miss Addison took great delight in watching Molly clean a loo with her toothbrush. By 8:30, Molly was feeling sick. The morning didn't improve on the way to school either. Their school, Briarsville Junior, another grey stone building, was a 15-minute downhill walk from the orphanage. On the road, one of the village boys threw a water bomb at Hazel. When she ducked, the water bomb hit Molly, exploding on impact and soaking her. Hazel and her acolytes, the 4 other older orphanage kids, thought it was very funny. As a result, school started with Molly and Rocky missing assembly trying to dry Molly's cardigan and shirt on the radiator in the girls' cloakroom. They knew they were going to be late for the first lesson, which was an unwise move. "Late!" Miss Toadley, the form teacher, shouted as they entered the classroom. "Achoo! And you missed assembly. I shall give you punishments later. Achoo! Achoo!" Miss Toadley had a small sneezing fit, which was what always happened whenever she got worked up. Molly sighed. More punishments. Mrs. Toadley's punishments were imaginative, and of course Molly knew about them firsthand. For instance, when Molly had been caught chewing paper for the 10th time, Mrs. Toadley had made her sit in the corner of the classroom and eat a pile of computer paper. It had taken Molly 2 hours and was particularly unpleasant. It's very difficult to pretend pulpy paper is actually a ketchup sandwich or a donut. It just tastes of paper. Molly hated Mrs. Toadley and she was glad that she looked so repulsive, blubbery-faced and half-bald, with a stomach like a water-filled rubber bag. Her appearance served her right. Molly might have pitied Mrs. Toadley for her noisy, gurgling insides, for being allergic to everything and so sneezy, but as it was, she hated her. Mrs. Toadley's sneezing fits were usually useful for cheating, but today cheating was out of the question, as neither Rocky nor Molly knew the answers. They sat down at 2 worm-eaten desks in the front row of the class. It was the test from the land of gobbledygook. Not only did the class have to spell the words, but they also had to give their meanings. Molly and Rocky blundered through it, guessing the answers. When they had finished, Mrs. Toadley collected the spelling test and set the class an English comprehension exercise, as she set to work marking them. She started with Molly's. Within minutes, Mrs. Toadley's squealy, high-pitched voice whistled through the classroom, followed by a succession of loud sneezes. Molly's stomach tightened as yet another telling off began. Her strength began to crack. After all, a person can only take so much battering. She put on her best anti-tell-off armour and switched off. She had to stop Mrs. Toadley's cruel tongue hurting her. In her mind, she floated away from the classroom until Mrs. Toadley's ghastly tones were tiny and distant, as if coming down a telephone line, and the squirrely pattern on her stretchy skirt became a purplish-orange blur. "You got notorious wrong too," came her squeaky voice. "Achoo! Achoo! It actually means famous, but in a bad way, and I must say, that's you all over, isn't it? Eh? Eh, Molly? Eh? Hey!" Molly sat up. "Molly, no! Will you listen to me for once, you useless girl?" "I am sorry if I have disappointed you, Mrs. Toadley. I'll try harder next time." Mrs. Toadley snorted and sneezed and sat down, her veins throbbing with adrenaline. Molly gave the morning 10 out of 10 for dreadfulness, but in the afternoon something much worse happened, and it was nothing to do with the teachers. After lunch, Molly's class changed for the cross-country running race. It was pouring with rain, and the paths that led up the hill away from the school and into the woods were muddy. Droplets of rain ran down the cloakroom windows as Molly searched for her lost gym shoe. By the time she'd found it and she and Rocky had stepped out into the rain, the others were a long way ahead. Rocky wanted to catch up, but the slippery ground made progress difficult. After running through the sludgy woods, Rocky needed a break, and Molly needed a break, and Rocky was beginning to wheeze. So they sat down on a bench under a tree for a little rest. Their gym shoes were sodden, and their legs were cold and wet, but their plastic anoraks made them feel hot. Rocky took his off and wrapped it around his waist. "Come on," he said. "Let's start again, otherwise we'll be way behind." "Oh, why don't we just go back?" suggested Molly. "Molly," said Rocky irritatedly, "do you want to get into trouble? You're mad." "I'm not mad. I just don't like running." "Oh, come on, Molly, let's keep going." "No, I just don't feel like it." Rocky tilted his head and looked searchingly at her. He'd spent the last 10 minutes helping her find her shoe, which had made him late too, and now Molly wanted to get them into even more trouble. "Molly," he said exasperatedly, "if you don't come, they'll probably make us go round twice. Why don't you just try?" "Because I'm no good at it, and I don't want to." Rocky stared at her. "You could be good at running, you know, if you tried. If you got better at running, you'd like it, but you won't even try." Rocky looked up at the rain clouds above him. "It's the same with lots of things we do. If you're not good at things, you just give up. And then you're not good at them more, and so you don't try more. And so then you're even worse at things. And then—" "Oh, shut up, Rocky." Molly was tired, and the last thing she wanted was a lecture from her best friend. In fact, she was shocked that Rocky should bother. He was normally so easygoing and tolerant. If anything annoyed him, he'd normally just ignore it or wander away from it. And then, continued Rocky, you get into trouble. He took a big, fed-up, wheezy breath. And you know what? I'm sick of you being in trouble. It's as if you like it. It's as if you want to get yourself into more and more trouble and be more and more unpopular. Molly's heart jolted in amazement as his unexpected words stung her. Rocky never criticised her. Molly was furious. You're not so popular yourself, Rock Scarlet, she retorted. That's because I'm normally with you, Rocky said matter-of-factly. Maybe it's actually because no one likes you much either, Molly snapped. I mean, you're not perfect. You're so dreamy, it's like you live on another planet. In fact, communicating with you is like trying to get through to an alien. And you're not exactly reliable. Sometimes I have to wait hours for you to turn up. Like yesterday, I waited ages for you by the school lockers, and finally you wandered up as if you were on time. And you're so secretive, you're almost sneaky. I mean, where were you yesterday after school? Recently, you've been disappearing all the time. People may think I'm weird, but they think you're just as strange. You're like a weird, wandering minstrel. Still, they like me more than they like you, that's for sure, said Rocky truthfully, turning away. What did you say? I said Rocky loudly, they like me more than they like you. Molly stood up, giving Rocky the filthiest look she could. I'm going, she said. Now I know what you think of me. Now I know you think you're so much better than me. And you know what, Rocky? You can run on and catch the others up. Go and make yourself more popular. Don't let me hold you back. Oh, don't get so worked up. I was only trying to help you, said Rocky, frowning. But Molly was enraged. It was as if something inside her had suddenly broken. She knew she was less popular than Rocky, but she didn't want to hear it. It was true that everyone bullied her, but no one ever bullied Rocky. He was untouchable, confident, difficult to upset, and happy to daydream. Hazel and her gang steered clear of him, and he had plenty of friends at school. Other children secretly wanted to be like him. Molly hated him now for betraying her. She glared at him, and he puffed his cheeks out at her in an "oh, you drive me crazy" way. Same to you. And you know what? You look like a stupid blowfish like that. Perhaps some of your new friends will find it clever. As she stamped away from him, she yelled, I hate this place. In fact, I can't think of a worse place to be in the world. My life is just horrible. Molly stormed off through the bushes. She wasn't going to do the cross-country race, nor was she going back to that miserable school today. She was going to her special place, her secret place, and they could all whine and moan and shout until they were blue in the face. And that is the end of chapter 2. I hope you enjoyed it. So goodbye, and tomorrow I'll be back to read you another chapter of Molly Moon's incredible book of hypnotism by me, Georgia Byng. And until then, I hope you're really well and keep happy. Be kind to each other. And yes, happy hypnotizing.